Ralph, where are you? Come on up.
One, two, it is.
How are we doing so far?
This is really impressive. I mean, this music and everybody playing it. My take on this is, of course, it's an honor to have anybody interested in something you do, you write. But they're playing it in a way that I recognize, and I like the way they're playing it. But I'm really impressed with the way they've made it very personal, and everyone plays it in a way that suits them and kind of expresses the way they play. So that it can be done is very interesting for me in my position.
Excellent. So I'm gonna ask you a few questions I've been meaning to ask you for 30 or 40 years now. Your music sits at the crossroads of many streams. That's a double metaphor, by the way. Jazz and
mixed metaphor.
mixed metaphor. Jazz, classical, Indian, and African influences were all part of what you've done. So, at what point was that a conscious choice for you? At what point did you get a feeling like this is who I am?
Well, I never looked at it that way. I spent a lot of formative years learning sort of different kinds of music. I mean, being an old fart that I am, I was born in 1940. So I had two brothers that were in the Second World War who collected all these swing band records and some Duke Ellington. And so I grew up with these recordings that kept me in touch with this thing like Glenn Miller, and then a lot of Gershwin, and my mother's playing church organ. So I had an exposure to that kind of all kinds of music, and I started improvising almost immediately, just screwing around on the piano, but not really training myself that much. But where I really, so I studied classical guitar. I fell in love with that instrument very late, and was somehow able to go off at 22 years old and go to Vienna, to Austria, to this great teacher there. So I built the different, and I played trumpet in swing bands and dance bands when I was 12, and Dixieland, and so I had a huge jazz background in terms of different kinds of jazz. And then I went to the university and studied classical composition, and but I really didn't find my main instrument, my love, until I was 22, and at that point, it seemed. Fortunately, there's no one to say you're nuts. You can't go start an instrument at 22, you know. But I've been a musician all my life, so it was a matter of just holing up in Vienna in this little room and practicing for a year, studying, but for 2 years actually. What I'm getting at, though, I really started. First, I heard Brazilian music coming back from Vienna on a boat. And the station faded in and out, but it really caught my ear. Sort of music on a nylon string guitar, but using basically jazz harmonies. And so I started playing Brazilian music when I got back, and piano. So, but when I finally was ready, I moved to New York City, and that's where everything really started happening in '68 and the '70s. A lot of bands and a lot of different musicians were all kind of playing together and rehearsing, more having jam sessions, but actually rehearsing new tunes and trying to. And at that time, we were hearing all kinds of music, Indian music, and playing with different people from all over the world. and just trying to extend the jazz language, the improvising language, including sort of a classical sensibility on the instruments, and then all the odd meters and new scales and new harmonies, and so that's why New York was really important for me then. It was a great era. I mean, for new people living in it was cheap. You could live in Manhattan and pay $140 to live in the Village, in West Village, a month. Rent control.
Those are the old days.
Yeah, right. So I'm a real dinosaur. I represent that, but I gotta say I took advantage of it, and but it's really a thrill somehow to not somehow it is a thrill that to have been able to record and write and put this music out in public, and now to hear these wonderful musicians that were interested. I'm always kind of shocked sometimes of the great players that say they really like my music, and so this has been quite a surprise.
Let's talk about your composing. Is this a daily practice for you? What's the process like for you to come up with your amazing canon?
Well, it's got a bit of years, but I don't have I'm not very time conscious of like sitting. Some people I know Chick gets up in the morning and writes until lunchtime, has lunch, goes back to write, and then has dinner, and then goes back to writing again. And he kind of keeps it in files and keeps everything. But I write, but I don't, if I can't think of anything or nothing interests me when I'm searching around, I won't write something if it doesn't have some impact to me in a way. So I'm very fussy about all the notes I put down, and I'm amazed that Ben Mondred would try that one tune, which a lot of these tunes I've not forgotten about, but I'm surprised at how difficult they are.
Yeah.
But
Ditto.
that's quite a lot to bite off in some of these tunes, I think. But my intention for writing, though, the one thing I like is my melodies are actually quite simple. But it's like they're kind of the stars of the show, but what really makes them is the scenography or the scenery, the harmony. And it's I remember being very impressed with how Stravinsky would write these simple melodies, but completely change the world they existed in just with the harmony. So that concept has always stuck with me. And then of course there's still a lot of George Gershwin left in this melancholy. I think I had a kind of a melancholy bent as a child anyway, and something I always loved about Gershwin's tunes that had this dark sort of sound to it.
When you write, is it often a process of improvisation that leads you to an idea? That's what you were
Yeah, well,
referring
I've said this before. What I do is I use a metaphor like, let's say, some primitive people with two stones. They're trying to find two stones that'll make a spark that will light a fire. They're trying to light a fire. But I'm basically hunting for an interval or something. There's like two events or something. The first thing is just a sound, let's say whatever, and it's pretty, can be a pretty chord or something. But until you do the second thing, you've already started something that it kind of projects itself. If it's interesting, and I won't write anything until I sort of find that the right two stones that produce a spark. But it actually does work that way for me. Otherwise, I won't write. I won't write it down just because it's another pretty sound, you know.
Yeah. So, in terms of your 40, 50-year career, do you feel that your writing has gone in phases, or has it been different things interesting you at different times that you were focusing on?
You know, I'm sure I was influenced a lot by what everybody else was doing, writing, and what music was in the air. And if you hear something and you like it, generally it'll find its way into your playing and your music. And so everybody rolls around and rolls around in the leaves, and some of them stick to you. But as far as stages, I mean, I suppose that they might be governed by where I lived, maybe, but when I hear this music tonight, I'm surprised that they do come from different times, I think. So far, we've had some interesting tunes. But
you said you had 400 some songs in an
Yeah,
email,
that's right.
and that most people don't know. Well, a half, 3/4.
well, a lot of them I wrote with Oregon, and a lot of the record companies died, really quickly. So Vanguard was a catalog company we were with for 9 recordings, and those stayed available. So that was people. And then ECM has been great. I mean, that's everything I've ever recorded is still available. But there's no CD stores to buy a CD. So everything's done now, and so things have changed so much, I don't know how it works, with the internet. But at least I was lucky enough to have that, those things still. So in a way, YouTube is good. I mean, probably this concert will show up on YouTube tomorrow. I mean,
Unfortunately, somebody's probably already live streaming it, which if you are, would you stop right now, please?
it's true though. I do a concert, and the next day it's on YouTube.
Yeah, no matter how you played.
And yeah, right. No matter how well it was recorded or how
Yeah.
badly it was recorded.
But
But at least they know you're alive and kicking there.
yeah. So when the several times I saw Oregon, you always made a point of doing a free improvisation. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, that was just one of our fascinations was with the. But to be able to play and compose a piece for people, basically that's what an improvisation group is trying to do. But in our case, we're really we would operate from the first sound, and then somebody would do a second sound. Could be anything. Could be a broken bottle but it could be, in case of just music, sometimes we'd break into something that would evolve into a polka or something. And then the rest time it would sound, other pieces would be like music that you associate with the 20th century, which is back there. It's amazing. 20th century music, people decided to ignore practically. It's an entire century that was like, not ignored completely, but that way of playing and that the using different forms of tonality or sound, but you're all playing you're composing the same piece. Basically, you're trying to make a story out of this piece, and the difference is you've got 4 people. So the best improvs are usually when people are listening as well as contributing, which is an interesting balance to be in the middle. But then if it gets too democratic and people don't step out, then it gets a little bland. So you have to have the freedom in a group, I think, for if somebody decides to have a fit, or something. They should be allowed to do that, if it's free. Mm-hmm. So that's a balance of egos and personality, all trying to operate make a piece, a single piece, with 4 authors or 5 or 3.
So just to get a little bit nerdy here, for those of you who aren't musicians, if you play like one chord with the left hand on a piano and a totally different one with the right hand, you get a 2 tonalities, a bitonal chord. And for a lot of us, the first time we heard these chords on guitar was through your music, slash chords, if you will. Even at the end of your most iconic and extremely tonal song, Icarus, you end with this declarative F sharp over G or whatever it is. Talk about that, because it's this amazing spice that characterizes so much of your music, these beautiful, complex chords.
Well, at some point in a tune that's like sort of hanging on the edge of being too sweet, it's nice to throw in a little poison or something to wake people up. I mean, really, you're telling a story, and it's nice. The good stories usually have a crisis somewhere in there. It's not. It's like if somebody's frying an egg. Your story is that guy standing at let's say poaching an egg is more modern. I'll modify it to make it more current. No fat, Anyway, so he's poaching an egg, and then he fishes it out, and it's perfect, and that's the end of the story. And it's like, well, that was a lovely story, but but if he's busy poaching the egg and suddenly the entire kettle falls on his feet, scalds his foot, or he avoids it, and what he does to recover, that makes something. It doesn't have to be that drastic of an incident, but it's in a way you're sculpting some kind of series of abstract events that do have their own language, and music is interesting. For me, it's a real language with no. It can exist without lyrics. Yeah. So there's always some sort of sense of tension that you're building and holding together.
That's a great composition lesson. We'll have some contributions, hopefully, from the composers in the audience for that free lesson. That was beautiful.
I don't know. Yeah.
So your comping style is really unique and dramatic with the right hand. I think a lot of it is probably because of your classical technique. I remember I was trying to learn one of your pieces once with Glenn Cronkite way back in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And he said, it was one of my pieces. He said, you got to listen to this Ralph Towner piece because you're just not accompanying this piece right. And I listened to it. I went, wow, I never understood what a deep rhythm player you were to that moment. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, it's pretty simple. I'm a piano player. I listened only to, I learned my comping by being a piano player and playing in some, just playing jazz and comping and hearing great players, piano players that I emulate. But so the guitar I've always treated as a keyboard instrument, and so you're able to the trick with making it sound some of the complicated chords. You've only got 6 strings, and just playing 6 notes doesn't make it necessarily complicated. But it helped my study in college or university of Baroque music and writing, Bach chorales and how to make, using the closed and open voices, how to use fewer voicings that imply something bigger. Like, and it's especially handy on a guitar. You can find the most important notes in the chord that move the most air, without like stacking a bunch of notes too close together. So it's a lot of it's like Baroque. It's a great example, Baroque music, as far as how to move voicings and keep everything sounding very full and big, and yet you're not just having to play a ton of notes. Sometimes it sounds watery if you play double the wrong note on your guitar in a chord. So it's just a sense of things, I guess.
So really making a left turn here, we did a 50-year anniversary concert of the Woodstock Festival on Thursday with jazz musicians interpreting the music of Woodstock, and I was told a fact that I had not known, which is that you played at Woodstock. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true, but it's odd. There's this folk singer would hire jazz musicians. He had hired Warren Bernhardt, and then Glenn Moore and I played with some group he fabricated, and I thought it was just going to be a folk festival, and he was going to pay us $300, and it was upstate New York. And so we drove up in this car, and he had some sort of semi-hit record, and so we were going up in a limo. But at some point, we got close to Woodstock, or where the venue was, and we couldn't get in because it was impossible to drive into the venue. So all of a sudden, there's this line of cars all going to a place in a field in which helicopters would land and ferry all these musicians that were in the other cars. And eventually our turn came, and Glenn and I got to ride in this helicopter. And it still was this is something for a folk festival. What's going on here? And and so this helicopter finally comes over the venue, and you look down, and there's 450,000 people. And it's almost like you remember the cartoons where the cat usually runs over a cliff and is suspended in air and doesn't realize it until he looks it down and realizes. It's like the Wile E. Coyote. And he starts and then drops. Yeah. So that's just how I felt when I looked down and went, I don't want to go down there. But let's see, Paul Motion played with Arlo Guthrie.
I heard that. Yeah.
So a bunch of sort of grizzled jazz musicians did, but I think the thing that I was involved in sounded so bad it never made any recordings.
So that's
yeah,
a great story.
There's something weird about getting as old as I am now, is that I'm this old fart that you just mentioned a single name, and I have a story for that, something that happened with that person.
I wish we had 2 hours for
No, you don't.
So the group with the Norwegians was a seminal moment for a lot of people. I know that I keep going back to the Jan Garbarek quartet with you, and I hear something new in it every time. It feels so modern to me. Talk a little bit about that music.
Oh yeah, that was kind of the most miraculous recording. I mean, I kind of had heard recordings of Jan of Garbarek and then Eberhard also, and I thought, oh, these guys would be great. And then I had heard Ewan Christensen playing with I don't know, a lot of in jazz festivals, and he was great. So that was the group. Then I knew who I was going to be writing for. And I had this concept of playing, and the one thing was we couldn't do many concerts because then there wasn't pickups and technology where you could hear the guitar loud enough over the drums and Everard's electric bass. And although there are some concerts that didn't sound that bad, but in the studio, almost every take was single take. Wow. And it sounded like that in the headphones. And these tunes we had rehearsed, but they came out. And actually, there's again on YouTube, there was a video of a rehearsal that I didn't know existed. Wow. And I'm telling them to do something or bossing them around. But it was just amazing. The way it sounds on the recording, it was like being a part of it. I mean, that's the way it was when we were playing it, and then in the headphones. And so that was really a buzz. But that ended up, I had some ideas. In that recording, a lot of tunes. I was into writing, having a lot of driving rhythm with the drums. And the tunes had a lot of strange chord changes. But rather than, I wrote, some of those tunes have no bar lines. And when the next chord would change, the melody was written, So he's playing the melody kind of rubato. When he would arrive at a certain point or breathe about ready to thing, Eberhard and I would change the harmony, that was already pre-written kind of, but the harmony itself. But they're just no bar lines. So you could keep you'd know when to be the most dramatic time to change after you would arrive at after 3 notes of the melody, and then you would feel when it was the right instant somehow, just listening to everybody in the way it felt. And so that was a wonderful way to be connected to the shape, the way the music was being shaped and the tension involved. And of course, that's another version of playing and really contributing something, but what you're doing depends totally on what you're hearing everybody else doing. And so you're responding, but then also making something would be influence it. So that's the magic of this thing of being a musician, playing with other people, is adjusting your playing while you're contributing again, and then hearing. I mean, being able to hear and also hear yourself. If you get too far involved in hearing yourself, you get lost. And if you get all involved in somebody else's playing, you're sort of tagging along, or maybe not doing anything. So
this may be a slightly difficult question to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you feel, from where you sit, that you've been appreciated for all the music that you've done in the way that you have wanted to be?
Well, now I do, kind of. I mean, I don't know how much appreciation you need, you need feedback, I mean, to encourage you. The whole thing of coming to New York and starting to play and trying to find people to play with. It's about finding out how well you play by who you're playing with, and what you see as it grows. But it's you need the feedback somehow from other people. But I don't need it to really want to play. That's not no. I don't know. When you're a little kid, you want to attract attention somehow. So I don't know how much of that. Maybe I'm still avoiding becoming a full-grown adult. So.
And
whatever that is.
I think to a lot of us, the legacy of Oregon is very powerful. Just to single out one aspect of your career, I think a lot of us who were in this concert felt that we might have first been exposed to certain kinds of world music, or, as I mentioned earlier, the union of jazz and classical. I feel that in a way, you were with that group were on the leading edge of a lot of things. Does it feel that way to you?
Oh boy, I try to avoid thinking like that. I don't know. I don't think, oh, this should be leading edge. You know? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I always feel like you're distracted if you get too involved in this sort of trying to analyze where you are in history or something like that. I don't do that at all, and it's a little awkward to even think of that. But whatever influence we had, I mean, there's a lot of aspects of the music that on those records of the Oregon, and the one thing that kind of didn't do us in, but is the fact that every track sounded like a whole nother world. And a lot of, you go from a bebop tune to something more like the free music of the early 70s, and then there'd be a very orchestral sounding thing, and then something that sounded like a chamber piece, and we could sort of produce almost any kind of family of musical styles without actually playing the style. But as I say, it was all over the map. And if you dropped if it was like a record, they used to have these records. You'd drop this needle in a certain place, you'd never know what it was. You know.
So you are playing at the Jazz Standard this Wednesday and Thursday. I hope you all have your tickets. And other than that, what's the future hold in terms of recordings or projects or anything?
Well, I'm kind of
you'd like to
stuck right
mention?
now. I can't come up with. I don't think I need to do another solo record. So I have some ideas of some players I'd like to put together, but there is one duo I do now and then with the wonderful singer Norma Winston, and she's written a lot of lyrics to a bunch of these tunes. So you can. I'd like to do that, but the opportunity hasn't come up yet. I'm waiting for Manfred to make up his mind, I think. So, I mean, I've done, we did a lot of symphony orchestra music that nobody knows about somehow.
Oh man, that stuff's incredible.
And
I'd
the
love
thing
to hear
with
that.
in Moscow, that was really lucky to be able to do that. We did a week in Moscow with Russian orchestras. They were cheaper. That's why we had to keep going east until we got the big orchestras that were cheap. And but we were able to do a double CD of symphony music, all our own music and our own orchestrations of it.
That's amazing. The Knights of the Templar,
in
particular, is a song that blows my mind.
Yeah, that's kind of.
And you orchestrated that?
Oh yeah,
completely?
all of it. Yeah. So actually,
It's amazing.
I'm potty trained with the orchestration.
Yeah.
I mean, I studied music, so
Yeah.
I know. I'm into that composition.
So we've got more music to play. I could sit here for a lot longer.
Yeah,
but
right.
I
I feel guilty.
No.
I'm doing that old man thing.
No. You're I don't know if you've noticed the mean age of the players up here, but it's not exactly spring chickens. So, we're all in good company here.
Yeah, right.
Well, again, it's just such an honor to get to talk with you and play your music. Please go back and have a libation, and we'll try our best. I chose two really hard songs. I feel bad about that, but we'll do our best.
I'm already surprised at the tunes that people chose already. Well, there's some easier ones. But
You say that, but I looked for easy ones, and there weren't many. Thank you.
Oh, thank
Ralph
you,
Towner.
Joel. Thank you.